Welcome to More Action, the podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals. I'm your host, Sheley Brien, and together we have candid conversations with industry leaders to uncover valuable wisdom and lessons learned. My hope is you use these lessons to intentionally take more action in business and life. I hope you share and enjoy. Well, back by popular demand is none other than Chris Brien, my partner in crime for almost 19 years. Are we at 19? Married?
30.
Forever? Too long? Well, I'm super excited here because More Action, changing the name is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And that's something that I can say without a doubt, you and I have always done is just take more action. Was it always the right action? Absolutely freaking not. But it was always more action in learning the lesson. And really today's episode, what we wanted to do, we're going to see how many we get through within the time allowed here for today's episode. But we are going to go through, I originally named this F-ups on entrepreneurships, but I don't know. We're just going to call this like really hard, like lessons that we learned in entrepreneurship, life, business, all of the above. And if you are wanting to see Chris and I and how we interact, we actually have our glass of wine as we're recording this episode. This is Sunday night that we are recording this episode. This is just time. This is just how it works for us. But I invite you to jump on over to YouTube, subscribe over there. I'm putting out all kinds of fun stuff on YouTube. I am learning all about it. It's a little bit foreign to me, but it's actually a lot of fun. And my daughter, Reese, like she's the one that's actually killing it on YouTube right now with her horse videos. So learning from my 12-year-old. And so I invite you to come over there. You can see Chris and I live. But let's dive in to kind of these first few hard lessons. I'll go first.
First,
what?
I'm looking at the camera and I have to say you were gorgeous.
You're
this is what people see. Like it's what I see, but I'm looking at your facial features. I'm like, damn.
Stop. Okay.
This woman is smoking.
Stop. Okay. Thank you. Let's dive in. Okay. So my first one that I literally, we numbered this out on a document, just lessons that we've learned. And the first one I said was no partnerships without operating agreements. Ouch. I've done that twice. Evidently I didn't learn the lesson the first time. So I thought I would really learn the lesson the second time. And with, stop. I hope you guys are having fun with it. This is going to be a really good episode. Is partnerships. I can tell you my most recent partnership that I was in that did not end well. It was one of those that I had done so much by myself. And then when we got into this partnership, there were some red flags and there was some really near and dear people to my heart. And in our circle, professional advisors that were like, are you sure about this? Because it seems like it's like complementary skills. Like, why would you be partners if you guys are doing the same thing? And then just the operating agreements, I think age was a significant thing. Experience was a significant thing that when the partnership was ready to be done, actually it was working quite well for quite some time, but when it was ready to be done, there was some significant age and experience, red flags that just waved their ugly face.
Yeah. Well, my thoughts on that are it's always it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to talk to someone that like a partner or someone that's coming into business with you that to have that conversation about let's do these contract negotiations, let's do these operating agreements because they come off as negative is what I see. But like you have to look at it from a different perspective. Is the only reason you have contracts and the only reason you have operating agreements is to deal with what happens if things go south. And that's I think if you frame it that way with someone that you're going, like everyone wants to kind of like tiptoe around it. Should we get an
I
operating
did.
agreement?
I was scared.
No, I don't want to offend the other person. Like I don't trust them is the thing. But like the bottom line is like, how do we deal with this? It's not just if you and I disagree. It could be as bad as like, what if I die?
Mm-hmm.
What if you die? What if you get a divorce? What if I get a divorce? What happens if like all the mess of life gets involved? How do we deal with the scenario? So it's not just necessarily about I don't want to talk to them about failing because I don't want to fail. No one wants to fail. So like we don't even talk about it. And ultimately, like, it's one of those things that eventually, hopefully, not doesn't happen, but a lot of times it does. It comes down to that point, and it's like you have nothing in place to deal with it.
Well, and I think a lot of it is too, for me, I know in this last one, I was just like, I didn't think, I was like, we're not going to fail. Like it wasn't even on my thing.
Right.
And here's the deal is that, there's actually another partnership that I am involved with kind of like an outside thing outside the construction industry. But that partnership now we have an agreement. We've had the really tough conversations, kind of the what ifs on the good and the bad. Like everyone's always like you said, divorce, death, just a disagreement, you want to dissolve it, whatever. But there's also like, what if the good? Like, how do we want to handle this? What do we want to do with the upside? Like, what if you look at me one day and we don't want to do this anymore? Like, how do we handle this? And I think because I've had these two previous experiences, this one now, it's been such an open, honest, great conversations from both sides that were so aligned that I'm like, I have such trust now. And honestly, it's like because it's been so hard a few times, I'm like, I really don't give an F. Like, we're gonna have these tough conversations that are uncomfortable for me. I'm sure it's uncomfortable for the other person, but like we come to the end and we're like, wow, that we feel so great.
Yeah.
Like it's really great.
Yeah.
So that's my first one is like zero partnerships without operating agreements. And Chris actually has another one that we'll carry on this in a second. But I'm going to say zero partnerships without operating agreements. Now, Chris and I'm going to add to this really quick. We're partners in the construction company. We're also partners in life. And that can create all kinds of different things.
It's a whole nother
podcast that we should actually separate on because there's been a lot of lessons that we've learned working together. And we're still learning hard lessons. Okay. You go one. You want to do this one first?
Yeah.
Okay, go. So that was number one, no partnerships without operating agreements. Now we're going to jump to number two. Chris, this is yours. Go.
No get rich quick. There's zero, very, very, even what you read online, even the stuff that you hear in the news on, there is still no get rich quick stuff. And I don't mean like it's very rare that anyone comes up with an idea and just sells it for $50 million and moves on with life. It still takes work, but still that there's everything you read on the news, everything you read online is the exception, not the rule. The rule is it takes a long time, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of ups and downs. And hopefully at the end of everything that you've put in, you're able to sell your business and you're able to bank a whole bunch of money and move on and ride off into the sunset. So that's my kind of thing is like, I feel like people get caught in the trap of entrepreneurship of, oh, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to be rolling in the cash. And the reality of it is the complete opposite way. You're the last one to get paid. You're the first person to deal with problems on a Saturday morning when things are crashing down. And it's not as glamorous as a lot of social media and a lot of movies and a lot of other stuff like to play into. So I would say like number one, don't expect to get rich quick.
Well, and I think honestly, when you have the perspective and you change and you're like, okay, and you like chunk back and look back, okay, I just had my birthday. I'm officially a cougar for the next like month, let's call it, until
What does that make me?
I don't even know.
Am I like
What is that?
I don't know, a cougar's toy or something like
Oh
that?
my God, no. So I'm a cougar, but I chunk back 10 years and I look back, okay, like I'm 44, I look at 34. 34 to 44 went extremely fast. And I remember in kind of that 38, 39, again in 41, thinking like, oh, I can do this in a year. Like, oh, we just need to get this started. In 1 year, I'll be different. And now, because I've been burned a few times, I look back and I'm like, actually, where do we want to be in 10 years from now? I'm thinking in 10-year chunks. And it changes the way that you address situations. It changes the way that you build the business. It changes the way of the conversations and the relationships that you invest time in and those that you don't. When you take your perspective from that very minimal short time and you expand it out to a decade, you make completely different changes, like different decisions. And that's something for me, I will say in the last year has been eye-opening in the way that I am planning like the marketing that we're doing for this podcast, as well as the construction company, even our family goals, like chunking out in decades. It's totally different decisions. And I almost feel like we're reaching things that we wouldn't have if we still had that kind of short-term mindset. It's like that longer term, different decisions, smarter decisions. We're learning and applying those lessons, and we're actually seeing the rewards faster than a decade. But the thing is, it's still all our decisions are decades out.
Yeah, well, I mean, to put it a little bit more perspective. So like when we do the projects that we work on, I would say probably some of the ones that we're actually working on right now were originally brought to our attention or bid in June of last year. So you've got 6 months of work before they even potentially kick off. And then there's always something more that goes on at that point where you need to revise things and get things going and schedule and order materials and all that before the actual project starts. So like when we finish up a couple of the projects we're on from the start, the time we bid it till when we finish will be a little bit over a year. So like, it's very hard to say, oh, I'm going to fire up this business and we're going to get rolling in a year. I'm going to be a different person, when you're like, the world doesn't revolve around just your plans. So like, you have to plan accordingly.
Yep. I love that. And I just think like the more I expand out our time horizon, the better it gets, honestly. And really your 40s are your best. So if you're there, cheers to you. Because it's fantastic.
Someone said to me a long time ago, in your 20s, you screw around. Your 30s, you kind of learn a little bit of how the world works, and your 40s is when you're making money.
And here we are. 40s are great, even with the gray hair. I covered mine up. You can see Chris's beard on YouTube if you want to pop over there. So, okay. So my number 2, I'm actually going to skip that one. I'm going to go to this one because this is a lesson that we've talked about, but I just think I can't shout this lesson enough, because every time I do, someone's like, I needed to hear that. And it's, I wrote out, no awards are given for owning multiple businesses. As much as you see on social media or people out there being like, oh, I own 3 businesses. And I'm like, good for effing you. Like, you're probably dead. None of them work. You're not really making any money, and you spread so thin. Like, you're seriously the jack of all trades. And we were there. Like, I say that with such like raw compassion, because like, I get it. We had multiple businesses because that's what we thought, right? Multiple streams of income, all of that. And I can tell you that at the end of 22, right? Or really like mid 2022, we literally went through a mass cleanup, shut everything down. It has been the best decision in our life. And we went from that, yeah, we have multiple streams of income. We have all these businesses, and you hear people talk about it with like time and effort, like a pie, right? And if you only have 100%, right? Or 24 hours in a day, you can only chunk out so much time per business, per like group of employees, per initiatives, per tactics, per problems that you have to solve on a daily basis. And if you eventually the pie is gone, everything is gone.
Mhm.
And yet there's still so much to do. And so when we shut everything down and went all in, it literally changed everything for us. It provided so much clarity. It provided us, like, I think, just such focus that even now, and we did an episode on this and we'll link it in the show notes, called Shiny Object Syndrome Entrepreneurship, because that's Chris and I. Like, we see problems all day. And if you are an entrepreneur, you see problems all day. I guarantee it. And you're like, I can do that better. I can fix that. I know how to make this. But don't. Like, literally, saying no is one of the strongest things that you can do when you see something that you're like, that's shiny, I can fix it. Maybe it'll be another stream of income. We can do this. We have the knowledge. No, come back to your main thing. Now, our main thing of construction, sure, as we grow, we will do different arms within construction. We're not going to go over and have like an internet-based business or go and do something completely different. We will always come back to this. And so the power of saying no and getting full clarity and going all in on one, literally, it is tough to explain the exponential results that come from that. What do you think?
You said everything I would say. I was going to chime in, but you just took everything.
I just took it all. I'm really passionate about this one because I know that out on social media land.
Well, I agree with that for sure. I don't think that unless your business is investing in other businesses, unless you're a VC company or someone who goes out and sells businesses, I don't think that. Don't let anybody ever rope you into the trap of thinking that you need multiple businesses to make money. You don't. Focus all your efforts and all your attention on what you're good at, what you're working on, and it will pay off.
And I think you hear that, like, burn the boats. I literally just had this conversation 2 days ago with somebody. I didn't have this conversation because honestly, I don't think she was ready to hear it, but it was like all of a sudden, this gal that I've known for a couple decades, she does real estate, but then she originally started in insurance, and she was like, oh, I'm like, are you still doing the insurance? Yeah, I'm still doing it because, if the real estate thing doesn't work out, I can always go back to the insurance, or if the insurance thing doesn't work out, then I can go back to the real estate. Like, those are two totally different things. So many different legalities behind it, so much different focus. And I'm sitting there listening, and this is another thing I've learned, right? Like, keep your mouth shut at certain points unless someone is requesting, advice, or let's say. And it was like her toes were in both. And I'm like, you can't win. You can't win. You'll never win because you're like, what if? Well, if this one doesn't work, I'm over here. So like, you're always like, oh, I got to keep this going because I'm scared to go all in. And it's like, you got to go all in. And if it blows up in your face, at least now move on.
Yeah, but it's tough because a lot of people who think they want to go all in aren't ready to go all in, because all in really means, like, when you say all in, it means I'm giving up everything else I have going on, meaning like I'm not going to be worried about vacations. I'm not going to worry about the car I drive. I'm not going to worry about the watch I wear, the clothes I wear. It literally means going all in. Like, that particular person is worried about creating, which to each their own. That particular person is worried about keeping their lifestyle, not necessarily building something that is going to provide, either fail or turn into providing $1 million a month down the road. So like, there is a very, very, very different mindset, not only beside getting into entrepreneurship, but also being able to go into entrepreneurship and saying, I'm going to lay it all on the line and like put everything I got into this. And if my lifestyle changes, my lifestyle changes because this is what I got. Like I'm down for this. I'm into this. Like there's micro things involved in entrepreneurship as well.
But I disagree. Like my thing is that when we have spread ourselves thin, going into multiple things, like sure, we felt
That's the big picture. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
It was even way more spread out than it should have been.
no.
But like you have to like, to me, what I was like, my point of saying that is like, not only are you slimming down like multiple businesses, which I don't agree with at all at any time, but also like when you're saying like, I'm going to leave X, I'm going to leave my job, I'm going to leave this, I'm going to leave whatever you're doing, I'm going to get into entrepreneurship and I'm going to double down on this. You can't have the mindset of, well, if it doesn't work out, I've got insurance, or if it doesn't work out, I've got X, because that's a mind, to me, I believe that's really more of a, I want to keep the same lifestyle I have. I'm not ready to risk it all. So I'm going to put myself on the hook and said, if it doesn't work out, I can keep the same lifestyle and do this.
Yeah, I see.
It's like I do agree with the burn the bridges mentality, like that you have to say like, hey, you have to have no other choice. When I started Brien Contracting, when we really doubled down on it, I had no other choice. I sunk everything I had at that point into it, every dollar I had into it, and I rolled the dice and said, this is what's going to happen. This is it. There's nothing else. There's no other businesses. There's nothing. And it has to succeed. That is the mentality when you have no choice in life. But when you're like faced with the fact that like, I need to handle my responsibilities, that's when they make moves.
We're saying, see, this is like a big part of working with your spouse is we're saying very similar things and the end goal is the same, but like we're thinking about it in different ways. So like you and I are saying the same thing essentially. And I think going all in, it's like to be fully successful, you have to do that. And I was terrified when I was in corporate for so long. You know that. I was terrified. My golden handcuffs were so strong and binding. I couldn't even fathom not having health insurance. I was like, oh, I can't do that to our family. Like I'm the W-2, I'm this, like, what is that going to do? And that was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life was like letting go of that, which sounds really stupid because it's not that scary, but it's scary when you don't see the other side. But my whole thing is, coming back is like, you don't win awards. You don't get a special little blue check mark next to your name when you own multiple businesses. What you get is a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of mess and a whole lot of like inconsistencies. And if you feel that pull, I would just say, don't do it. How can you go all in on the one thing that you're doing? How can you expand more or get deeper in the one thing that you are already doing? Who could you collaborate with? Stay where you are. Don't look at that other lane.
Yeah. And if you're doing the right things, like, what did I say the other day? If someone has time, oh, we invested in that company. And yes. And that company,
I think could be doing amazing things.
But the person who's running that company is dabbling in a lot of things we believe that they shouldn't be really focusing on. That's more for personal branding than anything. I mean, I look at it as more personal growth. Like, look at me, I'm doing these things, than actually building the company where
like you literally have nothing. You cannot do anything.
You shouldn't have if you're doing everything right in your business, that you shouldn't have any time to start another business. That's my point of it. None.
Yeah.
Because you should be so overloaded that you're wondering how you're going to get through the next day so that you're looking to hire extra people to figure out how you're going to grow that company,
Mhm.
you don't have time to start a second company or a third company or a fourth company or a fifth company or whatever these multiple business stuff are. You're going to like crush it so much that you're going to be making so money that you're going to be like, I need to invest this money in other businesses. That's the goal, not starting other businesses.
And that's a definite like perspective and mindset shift to be there. Is like you can't possibly go all in on two things. It's truly impossible. And so
that's like me trying to go all in on two wives. It's not going to happen, and I don't want the drama of it. Put it in that perspective. Think about trying to have 3 wives. No. No.
3 Sheleys?
No.
Oh my God.
I'm
You
throwing
would
in
be
the towel.
dead. You would be dead.
Throwing in the towel. You have 1. And that's it.
Yep. It's so like obviously you can hear our passion behind this because we lived it. We're not just like speaking off of like the cuff here. We lived this. The so-called accolades, the pats on the back of or the awards that we thought for owning multiple businesses or how cool it was. It was freaking horrible. Don't do it. Period. Okay, you go to one. So we're on number 4 now if you're with us still. Number 4.
You are on 4 on yours?
No, just like you pick one of these.
Okay. I'm gonna say no one wins when attorneys get involved. I've experienced this more times than I've want to count on 2 hands. And there's so many scenarios. It's hard to say because like there's so many things that come up in this, but I'm going to tell everyone bottom line, no one wins in attorneys get involved. So like partnership disputes, contract disputes, with someone that you're working with. There's just so many scenarios. It is significantly better, in my opinion. Perfect example. Some people this won't mean anything to, some people this will mean a lot to, but I walked away from $20,000 in our capital on projects that we were burned by subcontractors on. And that's a combined total. That's on a couple different projects because these subcontractors went out of business or were revising their internal structure of things. They had their own issues that were going on. Instead of me trying to figure out, for example, I think one was about $10,000, but my contract was with the client that I was working with, and it was our responsibility to finish the project. So we went and we brought in the right people we needed to, and we finished the project. It was better for me or us to move on and go build business and go look at the next project than to spend money to chase bad money. A lot of people may have heard the term, don't spend good money to chase after bad money. It is 100% accurate. Right now, we're involved in some issues where we have basically spent $2,500 on legal fees to chase money after. Now, we're not even chasing money. We're like defending ourselves against some other stuff. And for this stuff, and it is just not, I'm telling you, just do everything you can. Stay away from lawyers. Take your pride out of it, move on. You lose a couple $1,000. It is best just to move on and not worry about the aggravation and the stress. And not only that, the only people that win when it comes down to that situation are the attorneys. They're the ones that make the money. And it will cost you $20,000 to sue someone. It will cost you $5,000 just to send letters and get nowhere. Just move on. That's my next one.
Well, and I think like if you are going to spend money on attorneys, because you do need to have like incredible contracts, you need to protect yourself, they need to be fair, like all of the things, spend that up front.
Yes.
That's what he's referring to. Like spend the money.
But that's not even going to do it all. That will not do seriously. people will still run wild and they will still blow off your agreements and they will still do whatever they want. Seriously, it doesn't. You spend 10 grand on the most ironclad agreement. It doesn't mean jack. People will still do the same stuff. So you have to determine what is your threshold beforehand on when am I going to pull the trigger and what am I going to do? And if it's 5 grand, you got to move on. If it's 500,000, it's a different story. So my point is that, like, but still, even if it's a $500,000 thing, I guarantee the attorney is going to eat up all of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Easy.
It's a very, very, very tough. Like, that's the hardest. That's probably one of the harder parts.
I mean, what would you say is, like you said, get your ego out of the way? Like, what else is helping you move through it?
Ego is emotion.
Like, we're fighters. Like I shared on this show, like I am a right fighter, and it's not worth it a lot of times.
Well,
so it's like learning those lessons and being able to understand. You said, like, know your threshold before.
Yeah. Well, you have to make the decision beforehand. Like, when am I willing to do certain things? Like, if this person or if this company is, it all depends on the business. It really is. Like, I don't know. I can't speak to like a coaching business or a manufacturing business or internet marketing business. I only speak to construction and what we would deal with on that side of it. So like,
we have other businesses that we've had that we have experience
but
in.
we have a lot of subcontracts. We have a lot of contracts with owners. We have a lot of these things, like in 99% of things perform. Like it's a very, very, very user specific scenario. But I will say, between all of the businesses I've owned and you've owned and we've owned together, like, I would say the second that you think about getting attorneys involved, everybody loses.
I'm not going to disagree with that. And maybe you listening in right now, like, you're like, oh yeah, been there, done that. Or you're thinking about it because you're maybe in that situation. I will say, pull your ego aside, like literally pull your ego aside. Because again, I'll even take you back. Like, you don't win a medal, right? Like, if you, let's say, win your case or what have you, you don't win a medal. You've already spent a ton of money chasing after what you're hopefully going to get. And a lot of it is going to pay attorney's fees. It is going to be a burden on your time. It is going to take away from your daily production because you're mentally drained thinking about what you're doing. So you have to look at the overall cost when it comes to health, your mindset, your current business, your family life. Like, is it worth it to go after these things? Now, sometimes yeah, it is. Not a question, right? But there are other times where you just are like, nope, not like.
I disagree, though.
My ego wants to. You disagree?
I disagree.
You say never?
Never. I think a lot of things
I don't
can
want to say never.
well, very few. I think a lot of things can be handled with like a personal conversation, and like, no matter how much of an uncomfortable or difficult conversation it could be, it's best to sit down and try and hammer things out yourself, because again, you'll get $25,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in the deep of something that is really just a communication breakdown, where you could have just handled it for $2,500 in the beginning, and everyone is just amping up.
But then every attorney too has to, and I'm sorry if you're an attorney listening to this, but you get it.
Well, a good attorney, though, like the attorney we're using recently, I'm using, should be honest with you about that fact. Should be like, look, do you really want to litigate this? This is going to cost you 50 grand. This is dumb for you to go litigate. It is like, just don't even bother with it. We don't want to charge you that money. We don't want to be involved in this. You don't want to be.
And the likelihood of you even getting paid.
And the likelihood of you succeeding is very, very low, and everyone's going to lose. So a good attorney will tell you that. If you've got an attorney telling you, we're going to do this, we're going to litigate this, we're going to win, we're going to do this, just give us a $5,000, a $10,000 retainer, run.
Well, and that's what happened with the restaurant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we had
that's all they want.
2-3 attorneys in California trying to help us manage this, and not one of them were like, nothing.
No.
And of course, like, the company that we were dealing with filed bankruptcy, hid the trail, and we were out and got nothing.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry. What else we got here?
You're ready to move on.
I'm going to do another one.
Wait, you're going to
jump
go.
in.
It's my turn.
No, my turn. Anything I'm jumping into this. Everything can be dealt with on Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
Explain.
So like, if you're an entrepreneur, you've had a fire sale on Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. You may have gotten an attorney letter on Sunday morning, which is the worst time, by the way, which I've had, to get a letter saying like, we're suing you. Bottom line is like, no matter what, everything can be dealt with on Monday. Like, I know. It's hard to like shake it off. It's hard to move forward. It's hard to like just forget about it. Enjoy your time with your family and and everything else got going on. But that is like, you just got to breathe. You got to take a second and realize, you know what? This isn't rocket science. This isn't brain surgery. We don't have someone sitting on the table here right now. We can deal with this on Monday. That's all I'm saying.
He's like trying to mic drop, but I'm not going to let him mic drop.
I'm not mic dropping. I'm
You're
just
trying.
honest.
Yeah. Well, first off, I do want to say, like, we're talking about attorneys and like getting sued or going to court or whatever. If you like, you hear that, like, it's not if you get sued, it's when.
Well, in
right?
entrepreneurship for sure.
And that's the thing that I want to say. And that's
I
almost
was
like another
as a freaking employee. Like, yes.
But like that's what I'm saying is like, if you are doing big things and taking big action, which is this podcast, right? More action, things are going to happen. You can't shy away from it and run and hide or not take that next action step forward. It's going to happen. And this is just like another way. It's just another experience for you to live through. And what Chris just shared of like, it's not that serious. Everything blows up in your face on a Friday night. It's not that serious. There's nothing that's going to happen over the weekend that is going to change anything. So there have been times in life, and Chris handles this
Unless it's a fire sprinkler.
I'll tell you. Literal fire sprinkler.
Literally a fire sprinkler.
Okay. We're not going
to change everything.
Okay, yes. But what we're saying is that fires are coming no matter what. If you're doing big things, it's coming. And if it hasn't come yet, guess what? It's not too far off. When it does come up, the lesson is that Chris is sharing, deal with it on Monday. Don't let it ruin your weekend. Don't let it take away the precious time that you have with your family or loved ones or what have you on the weekend. Deal with it on Monday. It is okay. Just honestly, like, it's almost now when stuff blows up or whatever, I almost look at it like, here it is. Like, I knew it was coming. Like, here it is. Yeah. Like, okay, here we are. It's just like, I know it's like, validity or it's just like validity that we're doing big things. And that's like, okay. All these large corporations literally have legal teams on board.
Yeah.
On board, on staff. So like, okay, maybe we'll be there someday. We will. But like, honestly, like, I'm okay with it. Like, we will handle this. Okay, now I'm going to keep moving forward because we're really cruising on time. So I have two more that I really want to get through, but you like jumped in did too. So maybe I do too. Okay. So my next one that I wanted to share was, fail fast and move on. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that, and if you haven't, I bought into a franchise in 2018. I left like a 16-year corporate career. I was making really great money, golden handcuffs, left it all to go do this franchise. Well, 30 days into the franchise being open, we knew something was up. And meaning that my cost of goods and my labor were double what they were supposed to be. And no matter what I did, no matter how much I sold, how much I reduced my labor, how much I managed everything, it was not working. And I was the first franchise to open, and we started, conversations with the franchisor. Long story, very short, state of California did a full investigation, found fraud and misrepresentation. 11 months later, we shut that franchise down. Should we have shut it down earlier? Abso-freaking-lutely. Like looking back, we should have shut it down earlier than when we did. And what I will say is that this failure, and I've just shared this actually in some talks I've given with some incredible business people, is that like this failure was the first, like I failed a lot. We failed a lot, like as business owners, entrepreneur, like you fail a lot, but it was always like private. And it was very it didn't affect anybody else. And so it was like, yeah, I failed. That sucked. Let me move on. But this failure affected all my employees and it affected my family. And it really was way bigger than me. And it took me into a really deep, dark place. And um, coming out of that, it took me a little bit longer. And I've shared this on other podcast episodes, but it took me a little bit longer to get out of it. Looking back now and the things that we are doing now, I see failure as number one, just proof that you are doing the right thing. And when I see a failure, like right now, different marketing initiatives or different things that we're doing with the company, or even this podcast, if it works, I'm like, great. If it doesn't, I was like, okay, what I learned, apply and move on. So don't drag kind of what you know as an inevitable failure on trying to make it trying to make it happen when deep in your gut you know it's not going to. Let it be a failure. And failure, I seriously look as failure as like proof you're doing big things. That failed, learn the lesson, apply it to your next thing and move on as fast as you can. It's almost like I look at it as not only proof, but it's like now I know what doesn't work. That doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let me go move on to this. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, there's don't take, it's hard because failure is like the business is going to fail and you kind of realize that. But then every day you have problems, which may or may not be failures that you're working through. So just because you have daily issues doesn't mean that you're failing. But it's a more of a big picture look at from a financial perspective on cash burn, like what's your daily burn rate, what are your expenses, like where are you looking when you're looking 6 months down the road, that you have to like decide like is this going to make it or not necessarily on a micro scale but on a macro scale. Like on a micro scale you're going to be obviously as an entrepreneur dealing with issues every single day that may or may not feel like the world is ending or that you're riding high. I mean, like I don't know if everybody's ever saw the journey of entrepreneurship on the memes that they put on where the squiggly line goes all over the board. But like that doesn't necessarily mean you're failing. Like you're just working your way through normal entrepreneurship where looking at it from a perspective of, hey, we've been doing this for like 3 or 4 months and we're still burning a whole bunch of capital and nothing is turning around. Like, is this something that we want to pursue with or not? And what kind of like things do we have in the pipeline or not? Like, that's a bigger decision. Like, you need to work without your CPA and your CFO or whoever's working with you in the company. But yes, I do agree with everything you said. At that time when we went through that stuff, like we figured it out. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think the word failure seems like big and scary, I think. And that's where it's like, I don't know. I always hated, gosh, what did they always say? Challenges, like not problems, like that's a challenge. So like in corporate, they're like, oh, a challenge we have. I was like, no, it's a problem. Like, so don't try to soften the word, try to soften your understanding of the word, right? Like failure is like, again, I think a great thing.
Yeah, we fail every day.
Every day. Every day.
No, we fail every day. Like to put it in perspective, like if you're not failing every day, then you're not trying hard enough. Like if you think that what you're doing every day is like spot on and like 100%
perfect, and
is if it's 100% of the effort that you can give, then you're like you're not doing things, you're not thinking big enough. Like we look at there's things that we do on a daily basis multiple times a day that we're like, well, we failed at that. So let's like check that mark, check that box. And like, how do we figure out how we move on from that? So like, that's completely different than.
Why are we not going to have this failure again?
Yeah.
Yep. And I think like you can hear from us the word failure is like a really good thing. Like you're thinking big.
Well, you learn.
And it's in it coming back to the time frame thing, right? Like think in a decade. What like literally 10 years from now, I can't remember. I seriously like when I say it right now, I can't remember one specific failure when I was like 34. And we were failing then in certain things,
Well,
but I don't remember. My point is that 10 years from now, whatever you're failing at today will be insignificant and you will not even remember.
yeah.
Right? Because you've gained a lesson from it that you can apply in the future.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is like, you may feel like the world is falling at the moment, but maybe it's just a redirection. Maybe it's just, okay, clarity on what isn't working. But when you take it out a decade, it's really insignificant.
But failing, a lot of times we get like a negative context.
I agree. I agree.
Take the, well, I failed, or we failed, or this failed, or that idea failed, or our today failed. We weren't the best we could be. And that should be able to, you should be able to take that and mold that into how you get better. So the only way you get better is by failing. So like anybody who's out there who's tried, who's done these things and like said, well, I tried being entrepreneurship and I failed. I tried starting my business and I failed. Like those are badges of honor. Those are not like, you shouldn't take that as like, you're not able to do that or achieve your dream. It's that, hey, that's another mark, like a tattoo mark on your shoulder, another notch, bam, 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 another scar that you're learning from that enables you to get better. That's the mindset shift that people make when you really decide to get into it and do things like, okay, it's just another issue. It's another thing that a speed bump. It is not a roadblock. It is not a failure. It's not the end. It's a very small speed bump, and we move on and we learn from it.
Yep, 100%. One last thing before we move on to our very last one is like today, our daughter showed her horse and she's doing bigger things. She is going faster. She's going harder. She is leveling up in a new way. And today didn't work out as she was planned, but she's doing bigger things. And so, she came out and it was not the best run. It was not the best ride. She handled it best of her abilities that she had experienced thus far. But now she has a whole new baseline of what to expect. And so we came out and like you could tell she was kind of frustrated. She's going through it in her head. But overall, we talked about it and it's like you do bigger things, you're learning new skills. Things are happening at a faster rate that maybe you can't respond to quick enough yet because you haven't had the experience. Today, she had that experience. And so she will now, next weekend, be able to try again, and it will be a fully different experience for her. And so it's like, this failing is something that we take on in all areas of life, health, family, like all these things. It's not just business, it's everything.
Yeah. If you have a pulse, losing and failing is guaranteed.
If you're taking big action, if you're taking more action,
just everything in life, like losing and failure is guaranteed. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
It's what you decide to proceed with. It's how you decide to move forward. It's how that affects you and your mentality to push through it. That's where it comes from. That's what separates you from everybody else.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so here's our last one as we sum it up here. And again, if you might like the YouTube version, go jump over there. But also Chris and I are on LinkedIn. We're doing some really cool stuff that is going to come out with a construction company. So make sure you connect with us there and share this out if you like hearing from us. These are episodes. This is now our third episode in, I don't know, 120 some. together, and they're always the most downloaded. So I'm excited. I think everyone likes Chris more than me, which is totally fine.
Someone's so good looking.
It's 100% true. That gray beard does it. Okay, so the last one, and I wrote this down and you were like, oh yeah, absolutely. And this has really hit me, honestly, in the last 30 days. So I spent over 16 years in corporate, almost 18 years when I really think about it, because I came out, went back. Anyways, almost 18 years. And you always had the reviews. You always had the circles of feedback and people like patting you on the shoulder, being like, good job. You're doing a good job. Things are a good job. And I will tell you, in the last 30 days, we've been doing some big things. And I've literally been looking for my pat on the back. I'm like, why is no one telling me I'm doing a good job? And it hit me one day that I'm like, no, it's me. Like, I'm the one. So the last lesson is that no one will really cheer you on. You literally have to like appreciate the wins from you. And it's like, it was just eye-opening one day. Literally in the last month, I was like, I was looking for the freaking pat on the back. And then one day I'm like, I'm doing good. I know I'm doing freaking good. I feel uncomfortable. I'm trying new things. I'm collaborating with people that I've never collaborated with, and this feels really good. I'm kind of scared. You and I have maybe gotten in a couple heated arguments because we were trying to navigate some stuff. I was like, who's going to give me a pat on the back for like going through all of this? And I was like, I am. I am. So like entrepreneurship is like incredibly lonely. And you hear that, but the way that loneliness really kind of resonated with me is that I was looking for the pat on the back, and like I had to give myself the freaking pat on the back because it wasn't coming from it's not coming from this guy. It wasn't coming from this guy. I'm just kidding. He's very supportive.
It wasn't.
But it wasn't. Like, he has his things. We do very different things in our business, and occasionally we can pat each other on the back, but like we're going a million miles an hour. And our most important partnership is us as a married couple versus the business. And so it's like we have so many things going that it's like I had to look at me, like me. I am the one that is going to give the freaking pat on the back to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's
Thank you for agreeing, kind sir.
no, I mean, it's like, I don't want to be too hardcore. I don't want to go too off the wheels, but it is a very lonely, like grinding out, like being very sure of yourself and the decisions you make, that they're the right decisions, and, being responsible for other people's livelihood. And, that's a part of being a leader. Sorry, but if you're gonna run a business and you're gonna lead people, like, it is a lonely, very lonely spot to be in. It's just the way it is. Look through history, like read it all. Like, it is not a glamorous position. Like, there may be, history may have shined on some people who've been in those positions, but as an entrepreneur who is the leader of the company, you're going to be the last to get paid. You're never going to get a pat on your back. You're going to be the first to deal with issues that come up when the disaster strikes. And, that's the whole purpose of doing that, because you will 100%, 100%. You might not feel it right now. You might not feel it in 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, but you will reap the benefits of all of that effort and all of that grinding and all of that stress that you put into something will come back and pay itself off.
And I think, I recorded an episode on this, like, I forget the title of it. This is so bad, but it was about like, how do you define your success? Because everyone's defines success very differently. Is it a monetary number? Is it a level of freedom? Like, what is it? And, I mentioned earlier that in corporate, and actually what we're providing for our team members is feedback loops, right? Like, there are feedback loops all the time. And I needed to set those for myself, right? If you're on like health, like a feedback loop is your scale, how you eat, understanding how you eat, the working out that you do, you get on a scale that is feedback loop that tells you whether you're doing good or not. And it's not telling you whether you're a good person or not, or what have you. It's telling you, are your efforts producing the results that you desire? And so for me, recently, I have created some feedback loops for me. I haven't shared this with you, Chris, because I needed the feedback loop. So again, it's not like I'm looking to Chris to be like, okay, you're like the leader, the visionary of the company. I need you to provide that for me. I needed to provide that for myself. And that's the thing is if you are that type of person, and this could be a whole nother episode, carrot or stick or what have you, but like I knew, like I was craving something and I didn't go to him or anyone else to give it to me. I then realized, okay, so in this level, here's where it is. It's very lonely. No one is going to pat me on the back. I needed a feedback loop to tell me when I was giving 110% or when I wasn't. And so there are some things, and if that is something you want me to actually share more on, comment on social media, send me a DM, go on YouTube. Do not send Chris a DM.
Or if you want to see like more of us, send a DM, because if there are no DMs show up, I'm not doing this again.
No. Oh my gosh. These are so good. Do you see, guys? Do you like, and we've barely, like, this is 3 episodes. Like, we're gonna.
If you're not sharing this out and she doesn't get like 10,000 views, then
stop.
I'm not going to show up and do this.
Stop. No, it's so good, you guys. And there's so much more in the levels that this company that we're building, that it's growing. There's so many more lessons. And like, honestly, I can't wait to learn them.
Another thing, if you have a person that you know that is a super strong construction oriented person, superintendent, project manager, we are hiring, civil engineer, bring him in.
Okay, stop. That's not the conversation.
Send him our way.
Knock it off. Okay. This wasn't geared towards us. This was to help you guys. And so we wanted to share these lessons.
I need help with that.
Okay, stop. Shh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Stop. Literally, these lessons are the lessons that we've learned over the last 20 years. And there's many more, but for sake of this episode, we wanted to kind of bring you the top ones that have maybe repeated themselves or been most impactful in the businesses that we have built and the current business that we are building. And so I hope that by us being very raw and sharing this with you, that it helps you think about it. And if you guys ever, like, seriously, I get voice notes. I don't prefer voice notes. I actually prefer an actual typed out message. Just be super concise. I have no problem like answering questions, because if my lesson can help you save time and money, I am all freaking about it, because I wish someone did that for me and no one did. Absolutely. And that's where it's like doing this show. It's like about the action that we took. It doesn't always mean it was the right action, but we took action, we learned the lesson, we take more action. And that's what this is all about. It's just about taking more action. So please share this out.
And one thing, I do really enjoy helping people in the trades. Anyone who's in the construction industry, sorry, but like if you have a family member or a friend or a son or a daughter or anything who's getting construction and they're looking for like help or guidance on how they need to run their business or like just structure things and schedule things or whatever like that, I'm more than happy to help out. So like you can always reach out to Sheley. I'd be more than happy to help anybody.
Well, I think there could be something very much in the future coming from the Briens regarding to construction and building a business, because you are helping people all the time. And I can tell you right now, like I have some lead magnets on his website or on my website, sheleybrien.com. And we're actually creating one for Chris right now on Brien Contracting, because I know how big his heart is. And the trades, it's so cool when people get into it. Construction is one of the coolest things in the world.
College, go to trades.
No. Well, yeah. Okay. We're closing it up now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found value in this, don't forget, share it on. If you loved it, comment on YouTube. I'm really trying to blow up my YouTube. Can you tell? I've mentioned it so many times. So comment on the YouTube. Let us know if you want more or specific or more lessons or more like information on a specific lesson. We'll go deep, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.